In this episode, we interview intuitive healer Elyse Falzone. We talk about awakening your spiritual gifts, energy alchemy, and quantum leaping. You don't want to miss it. Welcome to the Abundance Hack Show, where we are inspiring you to ditch the outdated beliefs, release the blocks, and fully embrace your sovereignty so you can confidently expand to allow more love, joy, and aligned success in your life. I am Niajae, your conscious accountability partner, reminding you that abundance is your birthright. Hey M&Ms, thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. What are you manifesting in your life today? Today's guest is Elyse Falzone, and I'm so excited to chat with her because she is phenomenal. She is an intuitive healer and energy alchemist for CEOs and spiritual newbies. And you know we love talking about spiritual stuff on this podcast. So welcome, Elyse.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm excited to see what Spirit has in store for us today.
Yeah. So before we dive into your story and how you got where you are now, I want to ask you, what does abundance mean to you?
Hmm. Abundance is infinite possibility. Abundance is knowing your full value. Abundance is standing in full ownership of self. Abundance is, again, it just really goes back to that worth, like knowing your worth, knowing your sovereignty. No one or nothing around you can take you down, tear you down. That we're abundant beings from source energy. We are a piece of source energy, and so we have the ability to create that, to be that, to manifest it, to expand it, and all kinds of juicy stuff that comes along the way.
I love it. I love it. So yummy.
So yummy. I love talking about delicious, yummy things in this realm.
Exactly. All right. So tell us your story. How did you get to where you are? Give us the background.
Yeah, amazing. So I would say that, in general, we all have these amazing divine gifts. And through our journeys in life, we experience them differently. Some of us close off to them, some of us open them up right away. For me, really the first moment that me and my family knew that something was going on, when my mom was pregnant with me, her mother, so my grandmother, passed away. So I never got to meet her in the flesh. And yet, at a very young age, I was talking to my mom about my grandmother. And my mom was like, "What is happening? How do you know your grandmother?" And so she knew then that I was having encounters with my grandmother. And so while I don't remember that, that's the kind of the first story that was told to me about my gifts. And then when I got a little bit older, like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, um, man, it was a lot. I saw my grandmother, just like you would see a ghost. I mean, I really, I saw the holographic form. I saw beautiful energies. I saw terrifying, scary energies. And I just always knew that there was more than what I could physically see with my eyes. And knowing that, I knew it was a gift. I don't really know how to explain it, but there was a deep inner knowing that I had a gift. And I remember when all of this was occurring, I said some prayers. I said, "God, I know that this is a gift, but I don't know what to do with it. I don't know. I don't know. I'm scared." And that's really common for a lot of people, that fear around having an experience and not really knowing what to do. So I said, just take them away, take these gifts away until I'm ready one day to like fully bring them back. And so I feel like throughout the course of my life, there was this dance like, okay, let me test it out. Oh, no, still really scared. Let me test it out. Oh, no. I mean, there were people that came into my life, many different times throughout my life. I've had health issues throughout my life that really have taught me about my own self-healing, which typically in our lives, what we come here as our purpose or what we come here to teach or break through, we experience on the journey of life. So when I was 14, I had metal toxicity from my braces. Got gosh, doctor, nobody could tell my parents or myself what was going on. And out of desperation, thank goodness, my mom said, we're going to take her to a holistic practitioner. And within 15 minutes, she found out I was metal toxic. The metal from the bracelets had seeped into my bloodstream. And so she really became my first mentor, this woman named Kay. And she helped me detox with, herbs, taught me about color therapy. We did a whole candida cleanse in my body. And it really was like this powerful reset, learning to trust my body, learning to answer my own questions, with myself. And in that moment, I heard a voice, which I believe it to be God, that said, "You are a healer." I was 14 and I was like, okay, great. What does that mean? But again, it was like there were these little moments that would drip in throughout my life of like, this is your path and this is where you're meant to be. I would say, just to kind of bring it full circle here, in 2010, I had melanoma skin cancer. I've been a dancer and gymnast growing up. I was out in California auditioning, was hating auditioning because I was showing up as somebody else. I was never able to just show up as me. I was like portraying characters and it was really taking a toll on me. And I was doing that. I was also working as a massage therapist and I hadn't yet learned what grounding your energy was and like really protecting your energy. So I was drained. I was wiped out. My husband and I were going through some financial stuff. I mean, it was just like, it was not the most awesome time. And I got melanoma skin cancer. And I remember sitting on the couch in my apartment and saying, oh my gosh, this is the moment. This is the moment that I surrender to my gifts. And so I did. Said, all right, God, bring him back. Bring him back. And, my mentors, my teachers, programs, everything that I needed came in at that time. And, I would say for the next, like 2010 to 2012 was really opening those gifts. And then it's just been full-fledged working with clients, building my business, standing fully in my truth and my purpose since then. And it's been so, so powerful. And of course, many more awakenings along the way.
Mm, I love hearing your story, and there's so much that I want to touch on. So much.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I want to know, is your mom spiritual?
Great question. So, yet I would say yes. In general, yes. She hasn't necessarily used her gifts in the way that I use them or I've chosen to use them, but she's always been a vessel of possibility. And that's a really beautiful thing because I hear so many people who say, like, my parents told me I was crazy, or my parents said that,
Yes.
my imaginary friend wasn't real. And
Mhm.
it was my grandfather coming in, or it was my, however that worked. So I'm super grateful that she was that like bridge to possibility. She was always willing to try so many things. I remember I had mono in high school and we had this, this is so funny. I've never told this story, but this is bringing this forward. So whoever needs to hear this right now, here it is. We had this like, I don't know, like holistic options therapy book. And in the book, it was like how to work with your lymph nodes and heal through mono faster. And it was like using tomatoes, and we would have to put tomatoes on that, on like your lymph nodes in your throat. And then I can't remember exactly, but one arm had to be up, one arm had to be down, and she had to like pulse under my lymph nodes. And I just remember like all the crazy things that you could do to like bring in these ancient healing techniques she would do. And we would trial and error things. I did like watermelon seed tea for detoxing. I remember I drank a whole bottle of olive oil one time to flush my
Oh,
liver.
oh
I
no.
mean, just like crazy stuff. And yet it was so cool because, again, it was teaching me about my body. It was teaching me about these ancient techniques and really recognizing like our own power, my own power and choice inside of healing. So while she hasn't necessarily used it or like outwardly like been a healer, she's always been intrigued. She's always, keeping herself informed and is very open to the spiritual energies. And something else that's really common, especially with kind of like our age, our era, like our grandparents and great grandparents, many of them were also very connected and very spiritual. Like my grandmother, when she connects with me and I talk to her, she was so connected. And yet, the time and era that she lived, she wasn't able to express that. She wasn't able to practice these tools and these techniques. So it's really beautiful to see her and feel her supporting me, supporting my sons in this kind of lineage of spiritual activation.
Mm, I love it. I love it. And yeah, that's why I asked, because I think a lot of people's parents kind of tell them like, "Oh no, you're crazy. Like that's just your imaginary friend. Like stop
Mhm.
telling stories." And so it causes some people to suppress or deny or completely disconnect from their
100%.
spiritual gifts. And then I feel like throughout their adult life, it's undoing all of that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so good. So, one thing you said that I love is full value. I think that a lot of people don't don't achieve their full value and don't really live to their full potential. Why would you say that is? And even if someone doesn't want to like use their spiritual gifts for like a career, but
Yep.
still activating them to have that ability to help guide them and like following that divine guidance. Why do you think people are afraid of tapping into their full value and sovereignty?
um, there's a lot of layers and a lot of answers that want to come forward for this. I'm going to try to break it down as simply as possible. So, first and foremost, we are such powerful, divine, sovereign, non-linear beings. So I want to touch on the non-linear piece for a second. We've been taught as humans to take one step, then to take another step, then to take another step. This is what happens first, right? We we go to school, we get the job, we get the husband or wife, we have the family, right? It's a very linear process that we've been taught. And not just in stages in life, but like with time even. And so for some of you listening to this, this may be a concept that is a little bit outside of your scope. It's cool. Stick with me or just take a pause and come back when you're ready. Take it or leave it. But we are quantum beings. We have multiple dimensions of our energy and we have multiple dimensions of understanding and multiple dimensions of how our energy operates. And so what that means is that we can't even cognitively understand what's possible when we open up fully to these gifts. So it can be very fearful because it's unknown. And again, we've been conditioned to think that change is bad. We've been conditioned to think that the unknown is scary. We've been conditioned to think that if we don't just keep moving in this same, consistent motion, that our whole lives are going to fall apart. And so we literally can just like shake it out, shake your body and just take a moment. Like where is the fear? Is the fear around losing control? Is the fear around looking crazy to your friends and family? Is the fear around dark energies, coming into your space? I think that's the first thing to do is actually get clear. Like, where is your fear coming from? And then you can kind of dissect that a little bit more. And most likely, either find a tool that will support or realize that it's just a myth, that it's actually just been a falsified truth that has been believed. So that's kind of one thing. The second thing that I would say, and now I totally can't remember what it was so beautiful and important. And if it's that important, it will come back. So there it is.
Yeah, no. So I do believe it'll come back and it'll be at the perfect time. So
Perfect time.
I I feel like I do sound therapy at a rehab facility, and I feel like a lot of the people that come to my session are highly intuitive, like highly intuitive. And I almost feel like the numbing from whatever the addiction, whatever they were addicted to, the numbing is coming from resisting their gifts. And that's my thought. Like I didn't read this in a book, but that's just like my feeling. And I
Yeah,
think that like anxiety is at an all-time high, and in my opinion, it's people suppressing themselves and not
mhm.
connected with their body, and they have the fear, like that fear that you mentioned, but they're masking it and they're trying to run from it, and it's surfacing as anxiety and addiction. So how do you feel about that?
I feel a lot about that. I think there's a lot of truth in what you're sharing. It takes a lot of courage to walk the path of awakening.
Mm.
It takes a lot of courage. I'm going to say that again. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage. So this is a beautiful moment just to acknowledge yourself, whatever level you're at, whether you're at a level of masking or a level of unmasking what's been occurring, just acknowledging and honoring the courage and the willingness to walk this path. My husband and I last night were just talking about some of the bizarre things that are happening in the world right now. And the more in my personal experience, the more awake I become, the more the veil is lifted, and the more really horrifying things are showing up and feeling true. And in it, it's like deepening of faith, deepening in trust, deepening the love, recognizing that this really is one of the most powerful, beautiful, potent times to be alive, to be a part of love evolution. And inside of it, though, last night, I said to my husband, I was like, wow, sometimes it's easier to be asleep than to be awake.
Mhm.
And so that's coming forward in this conversation, that sometimes it's actually easier to mask the anxiety and to mask the fears than to take the fear, sit it in front of you, sit down and look at it and say, fear, what are you here to teach me? Anxiety, what are you here? Tell me, teach me, break me down so that I can eradicate. And I will say this, it doesn't always just go away, right? It is about befriending our egos. It's about befriending the anxiety, befriending the fear, so that we know how to work with it and actually use it as fuel for the fire instead of that fire being destructive.
There is so much power in what you just said. I literally like I felt it in my body. And there was a movie, I cannot think of the name of it at the moment, but it was Angelina Jolie, and there was a guy that she was trying to save or something of the sort because his father was an assassin, but he was kind of like a guy, just regular 9 to 5 job, and he had panic attacks. But really, his panic attacks was his superpower because he had like this like crazy ability in his DNA, but he didn't know how to use it. So it showed up as a panic attack, but it really was a superpower. And he was just not that like he's a great assassin, but he had like super laser sharp like eyesight and can bend bullets. It's a silly movie, but just symbolically, a lot of times there are a lot of lessons in whatever we're experiencing, whether it's anxiety or something of the sort. But I want to touch on something. So, as you said, leaning into the anxiety and the fear, what are you teaching me? Now, we live in a society where law of attraction and manifestation and vision boards are really cool right now. And obviously, I believe in a law of attraction, but I think that there's a portion of it when people teach it that says only focus on the positive and like shut out anything else that's not positive. And I had a coach that called it toxic positivity
Yeah.
because if you're not facing the shadows, it's almost like you're missing a whole point, and then people wonder like, why is manifestation not working for me? So how do you feel awakening and manifestation play together?
Yes, to all of that. So, there's kind of a catchy term going around like spiritual bypassing. And although I don't really like the term, if you dig into that a little bit, there's a lot of truth to it. There's a lot of potency. It's not always rainbows and butterflies. I will be the first one to say I love making everything rainbows and butterflies. Let's put glitter and all the colors. I want to play in that space. And the the truth is it will only get you so far
Mhm.
because it's not the complete truth. And everything in our world exists on duality, right? We've got the yin and the yang, as above, so below, the within, the without. Everything has its counterpart. And so, one of the things that I love teaching about is energy alchemy and what happens when we have a quote unquote not positive or a negative experience, whether it's in a conversation or fearing something that's occurring. It's like, how does that fear come in? How does the miscommunication of that relationship and conversation come into my being? What does it feel like? Okay, I feel like I've got a knot in my gut. Heat is rising in my body. I don't like what it is. Okay, well, what would I do if I listened to that feeling? What would I do if I felt that feeling really deeply, like really intensely for 30 seconds or a minute? Can it teach me something? Can it show me something? And what happens is when we're with it, it begins to move. Energy never stays stagnant. And while sometimes it can create dense energy in our bodies, right? Medical things that show up, right? Chronic pain, cancers, um, you know, really, mental illness. Like all of this can come when we're not proactively moving these energies and feeling the emotions. And so, how can you be with it and then allow it to teach you, allow it to move you, allow it to vocalize, la 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 la, like whatever needs to come out, screaming, grunting, right, in a safe, beautiful space. And then what begins to happen is the pain becomes joy, the grief becomes gratitude, the whatever the quote unquote negative emotion is, there's a blending of its counterpart. And we begin to understand a deeper depth and a greater vastness of what the human emotion scale can actually receive. And in that, like I've got full body chills. In that, we can feel our aura expands. We can all of a sudden sit with the person we're sitting with and see them differently, see them as love, right? This energy alchemy, I truly believe is such a massive piece and part to the shifting, the evolution, the raising of the frequencies of this new earth.
So powerful. Literally, like I just, oh my goodness. Yes.
So let me add one more thing. So because we're talking about manifesting, when you can sit with these uncomfortable feelings or the fear of never arriving at, you know, $1 million, or the fear of never being able to purchase the next car, or the fear of never fully stepping into our power or purpose, sit with it, love on it, let it become honey in your body. And all of a sudden, there's movement. And when movement occurs, there's an opening. And when the opening occurs, that's when alignment of universal source energy can drop in and say, here's your next move. Here's your next thing. Here's your next inspiration, right? It's not just about sitting and looking at this vision board. We've got to meet it with some sort of action. it can still be in the right. We talk a lot about feminine and masculine energies. We've been in very masculine collective energy. We're moving into feminine energy, but the feminine energy still is being a yes to the dance. We can't just sit. Like, we've got to be a yes to the dance, and then let spirit guide us and lead us and dip us and twirl us. We've got to be a part of the movement, or else there's no moving energy. And if there's no movement, how do you expect that manifestation to occur?
So good. Like, I literally, like, sometimes I create snippets, like, I need to create, like, all of that as a snippet because it's so perfect. I'm like, "M&Ms, go back and listen to that again because so powerful." I love it. Absolutely love it. Is your intuition getting stronger and it's freaking you out a little bit? Are you seeing repeating numbers everywhere and you don't know what it means? Do you feel or hear things, but you don't know how to make sense of it? Do you know the law of attraction is real and feel shame when you have a negative feeling? Abundant and Aligned Society is a support and accountability group for those beginning their spiritual or healing journey and are just waking up to their powers and clear abilities. Go to Niajae.com for more information on this membership that offers sound therapy recordings, guided meditations, journal exercises, and more to help you avoid the pitfalls and maintain alignment as you raise your level of consciousness. Connect with me if you are ready to gain clarity and start vibrating higher. You mentioned quantum, and I think that in the coaching world, in my opinion, quantum leap was kind of a buzzword for a while.
Totally.
And I think that there were some people taking people through processes that maybe their physical body wasn't ready for, or maybe even just energetically they weren't ready for. So, for someone who doesn't really know what quantum means or quantum leaping means, how would you explain that? And then what do you mean by quantum being? So just to kind of like peel the layer back
Yeah.
so everyone understands when you say quantum being, what exactly you mean.
Yeah. So there's lots of ways to explain it, and I'm trusting that whatever lands in this space is the way that it's meant to be for this particular moment in time. Again, everything is energy, and when energy moves, like when you and I, when our energy meet, there's something else occurring in the ethers that we can't physically see. And then because that energy is floating in the ethers, if you and I have maybe somebody else on our hearts or minds this morning, it's like that energy can pop over into their energy field, right? Our energy is so much bigger. We've had this conversation, and again, wherever you're at in this conversation, there's no judgment, there's no right or wrong about any of this. An opportunity to lean in or pause and say, I need to think about this a little bit. It's totally cool. We've been talking about, we've been living in this three-dimensional earth, and there's a lot of talk about jumping to 5D, right, into this five-dimensional way of being. Simply what it means is like, okay, you draw something on a page. It's flat, right? It's one dimensional. And then we have 3D art, which makes it look like it's more, there's more sides, there's more perspective. So we came in as 15 dimensional beings, which again, I'm kind of going out there for a moment. And yet we're living on a 3D atmosphere, a 3D experience. So this again is where I'm saying we cannot cognitively understand what it even possibly means to be living in a 15 dimensional space and place, let alone moving through this 4D uncomfortability and into this 5D of freedom and love frequency. So the higher our quantum field is, right, our bioenergetic field around our space, the higher we go, the more complex we become. And the more dimensional, the more perspective is available to us. And so the magic becomes even more exciting. And what happens when you go into, you receive a sound bath, the frequencies around you are raising. And so all of a sudden you access more dimensions of your physical being, of your soul being, right? When you go into a meditation or you have a beautiful breath work experience that takes you out of body, um, there's there's more layers and more levels of your being that you can access. Same thing when you go on a plant journey, and you go with plant medicine, you're accessing other layers of your dimensional being that your cognitive brain cannot access. So same thing, hypnosis, right? We go into the subconscious mind. We bring the subconscious mind forward. These are different pieces and parts of our quantum being, of our dimensional fields. And so when we talk about quantum leaping, it quite literally is like going into the subconscious mind, talking to our mind at a higher frequency, talking to our energetic field at a higher frequency, so we can access the abundance and the prosperity and the health and the happiness and the joy and the love that is beyond the mundane three-dimensional experience.
I love your explanation. I know there's coaches that are just like, oh, quantum leap and, start making 10K or 30K a month or make
Yeah.
your seven figures, like whatever it is. So like a lot of people have associated it with a monetary value, and not saying that like in another realm you're connecting with your higher self. So all things are
Yeah.
possible, but a lot of people have kind of made it about money. And I just wanted to like really get someone to
Yeah.
like that I know is grounded in what they're doing to explain
Thank you.
it so people understand. And you're 100% right. When you do like sound therapy, it is taking you into those different realms and what's possible. I didn't even know there were 15 dimensions. I had no idea. And so I love that. I love your explanation. And I think that there was something you said earlier about you were just like, okay, I'm not ready for this. Like give me the gifts when, I'm
Mhm.
ready and I know what to do with them. And I feel like I've felt that myself. And there's certain times where I'm just like, "Oh, I wish like I just thought like everyone else, because it would be easier." Because
Mhm.
sometimes when you're on your journey, the people around you, if they're not growing at the same pace, you can start to feel a disconnect.
Absolutely.
So I've had a lot of people reach out to me listening to the podcast about how they feel disconnected from their family, they feel disconnected from their friends, sometimes even their partners. So if someone is going through that, and I know I went through that in my life, what would you say to someone who is expanding their level of consciousness, or they're tapping into that 5D realm and they're feeling disconnected from the people in their lives?
Mhm.
What would you say to that?
This is a little bit tricky. It's tricky and it's simple at the same time. So it's tricky in the way that it can become very emotional, because there can be anger around someone not understanding what you're going through. There can be heartache because they're not growing with you. There can be discomfort, sadness. There can be a lot of emotion that comes up. So that's the tricky part. And the invitation is, what is this lesson teaching you? What is that emotion showing you? And how can that emotion teach you a a new level of emotional intelligence? So there's that aspect. And the other aspect is really the only thing that we can do is be the model. We do our thing, we be the model. You know, we just had some interviews for a summit that my business partner Gina and I did a little bit ago, and we had there are two moms that have come together. It's the Reconnected, and um, they are the Reconnected Being. I think Reconnected Being, I think is their Instagram, but They really bring forward like conscious parenting and how to be present and raise your children connected. And I asked the question, I'm like, okay, so there's people here that want to know, um, you know, what, how can you support your children coming to do breath work with you? Because they're breath work practitioners. And they were like, huh, you don't. You do your work, you do your practice. And then the kids may or may not come around. They will make their choice. But what it's showing is a modeling of the energy, a modeling of the experience. It's when we get defensive, when someone asks us a question, well, why can't you understand? Right? Then we're not actually being in the modeling of that loving energy. And so, how can we show up? My husband and I like to do breath work in the morning together. And the past couple of days, our kids have come and sat on our lap, and they'll sometimes do breath work. They sometimes won't. They'll just hug us. But it's like they're seeing their mom and dad consciously work on themselves and be connected to the higher energy. And what happens when we are in our own higher frequency, we're either going to invite someone to that frequency with us, or we're going to fall to, a lower frequency. And again, there is no right or wrong about any of this. It's simply an experience. So this again is where the emotion comes in. Like quite possibly you do less and less with those family members because they're not able to understand or be with you. A lot of times also when you are in your energy field and practicing, being in a connected state, many times it actually triggers those who are not yet there because they see something in you that they want and they don't know what it is. It's hard to put like a label, or it's hard to put like a grasp on what is it that they have going on? Why are they so happy all the time? And if they're not experiencing happiness, if they're not experiencing the level of joy that you might be, there's a whole bunch of stuff that can come up. Think about a time, in your life where you've been triggered by something. There's anger, there's bitterness, there's resentment that can come forward. So know that you're being a mirror, know that it's okay, and know that you're not alone. There's a lot of people in this world that are on your same journey. So listening to this podcast, right? Connecting with each of us, either of us in our communities, right? The greater community, like just keep plugging in, keep plugging into source. I'm plugging in, right? Plugging in to Mother Earth. I'm plugging in, right? I plug both ways. I like to plug both ways because if you plug one and not the other, again, it's duality. If you're just up in space all the time, you're floating and you might trip and fall. If you're only plugged into Earth, well, where's that divine connection? So plug in both ways and trust that you're not alone.
I love it. I love it. There was a Abraham Hicks video I listened to recently that I feel like the woman's partner or husband or something wasn't keeping up. Like she was into spiritual growth and he wasn't. And Abraham basically said, focus on you, continue growing. And rather than looking back saying, hey, you're not keeping up, hey, you're not keeping up, you just keep growing and leave them to catch up on their own, basically. Because every time you look back saying, hey, you're not keeping up, that's lowering your vibration. So
100%.
and I think that it's definitely easier said than done because I've been there. I've been around
Me
excuse
too.
me, like family where I felt like I had to kind of dim my shine a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So cuz my family, they call me extra, they call me like over the top, like all the things, and I realized that every time I did that, I wasn't being true to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so just staying where you are no matter who you're around, and it's so much easier said than done. Like it's something that I probably still work on now.
Oh, I am so not perfect at this, like at all. There are so many moments I have to like, right? Like breathe myself into it because I know the energy that I'm going to get or that I'm walking into, that I'm like, okay, how do I keep it where I want to keep it? it's a process, right? We are humans, like we are embodied as humans, and that is part of what we get to experience.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I'm so curious. What is the crystal that you have on like the your necklace?
This is an aquamarine. It's a
Mm.
raw aquamarine. It just happens to be my birthstone, but
Oh, beautiful.
I am so connected to the water. I'm a Pisces, so water energy. I have a lot of fire in me too, so I don't know. The water really keeps it in flow.
I love it. So, what are your top 3 tips for living an abundant life?
Spend time with God. Spend time with your higher self. Spend time with spirit, universe, Mother Earth, whatever that is to you. Spend time plugged in. That's number one. Because I will tell you this, uh, for me, now this might be different for each individual. This is my work. So 20 minutes a day is not enough for me to sit and do a 20-minute meditation or something. It's like at least 3 times a week, I've got to have like 3 to 4 hours
Oh, wow.
chunked together. And what happens in that space, I don't have anything to do. It's like my space to connect. So I might take a yoga mat out. I might move my body a little bit. I might journal a little bit. I might bring some crystals. I might just lay and look at the clouds. There's nothing. And in that space of nothing, the most profound downloads come in.
Mhm.
Now, again, I didn't start there. It's something that I've worked up to over time, but maybe it's like, you know, an hour of space 2 times a week. That is nothing, but like actually keep it nothing, right? You've got to make sure you've got that connected time. And for some of you, maybe it's 5 minutes a day right now, and that's okay. Like celebrate that time. So connect, 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 connect. Because in that connection, space is created. When space is created, abundance, possibility, inspiration, visions, messages can come in. So that's number one. Number two, move your body. You've got to move your body. Going back, to energy as movement. If we're not consciously moving the energy that's coming in and out of our body, it's getting a little stale inside. Okay, it's getting a little stinky. So we want to move our body, whether that's dancing or running or yoga. I would say if you're someone who likes to like really pump it out at the gym, that's beautiful. Keep doing that and integrate some sort of fluid movement, because the fluid movement is something different. If you're used to doing only fluid movement, maybe you do integrate something that's a little bit more staccato, right? We want to have different energies that allow our body to move, and doing so with intention, right? I'm moving my body from my heart space so I can expand whatever's going on in my heart, so I can move that energy out. So that's number two. Number three, what is number three? I this is another one that sometimes seems cliche, but spending time in nature, really and truly. And I don't mean just like going on a walk and being like, okay, check, I went on a 10-minute walk outside, I was with nature. But I mean like that juicy yumminess that we talked about at the beginning, like squish your feet into the mud, pick some flowers, lay down, put your third eye to the grass, like let your third eye just drink in the goodness and the wisdom from Mother Earth. Like touch, feel, smell, like dig your senses into nature, because nature shows us how many miracles are around us. Nature is so beautifully designed, right? I mean, there's been so much science and research and so much that has shown us that different pieces in nature mirror the parts of our bodies, right? The foods that we eat, not only do the colors typically match our chakra system, but a lot of times the configuration is the same configuration, right? Carrots are good for the eyes. So if you look at a carrot, it literally looks like our eyes, right? So there's so many different matching things around nature and our bodies. So when we connect with nature, we harmonize our frequencies to the earth. And our earth is our home. It's how we actually function in our physical human embodiment. And so the more that we can harmonize with the earth, the healthier, the more in sync, the more our bodies are able to operate at a higher optimal function.
Yes, I love it. So I want to point out, you said 3 to 4 hours, and I know that a lot of people are probably like, well, that's a lot of time. I mean, I was like, wow, myself, but I just want to point out you're a mom, a wife, and a business owner. And you are able to set aside 3 to 4 hours of time a few times a week. So for someone who's like, I don't have the time, what would you say to that?
Yeah. So gosh, I've journeyed with time. So it's beautiful that we've talked a lot about time. I've done a lot of journey with time. Time has been one of my biggest blocks, one of my biggest complaints in my life. I don't have time. I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to do that. Where's the time, right? Blah. Clear that shit, okay? It's still not perfect. But what I will say is that asking for support is a really big piece of this. Again, we've been conditioned that it's not right, or how could you ever ask for support? It's beautiful to ask for support. People want to support you. So whether that's asking support from my husband, finding an activity that my children can be involved in, um, right, asking for support. And also, until even backing it up a step further, until I decided that that time makes me a better mom, holds space for me to be a better healer, holds space for me to show up better as a wife, until I actually understood that I was worthy of having that time, I didn't take that time. Right? I was struggling for the 20 minutes a day. And when I mean struggling, I mean like struggling. And slowly it was like, wait a minute. When I take that consistent 20 minutes of time, I notice I can breathe better. I notice that my children are calmer. I notice that I can stay focused for a longer period of time. Okay, show me, tell me, God, like, what's next? An hour? You're kidding me. I can't do an hour. I can't. Nope, 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 nope. Okay. Big girl panties on. Here we go. We're going to do an hour. We're going to figure it out. Sometimes I would cancel some clients because I was very clear, like spirit was very clear with me that hour was the most important thing for my health, the most important thing for my family, the most important thing for my clients. And so I just started trusting that. And I noticed when I didn't be a yes to having that time, I felt tired. I felt exhausted. I was struggling. I had more anxiety. I felt more pressure. There are some weeks that I don't carve out this space. And they are the weeks where I am like, okay, what client do I need to call? And where is the abundance coming from? And what's going to happen? And we need to do this. It's like the 3D questions, right? The human struggle. Every time I'm like, oh, right. Even my husband will call me out on it sometimes. He'll be like, babe, you didn't take your time this week. I'm like, oh, wow.
I
Wow.
love that.
So I take my time, and what do you know? It's the highest client producing weeks. It's the, most testimonials coming in. It's the most joyful time that I'm allowed, that I'm with my kids. So play with it. Play with it. That's all I will say. Experiment with it and know that you are worthy of having that time, because when you have that time, miracles occur.
Oh my goodness. I love you.
I love you too. I get so excited. Like literally, I just like want to jump through the screen and like dance and play and give you a hug.
It's happening. It's happening. We're
It's
planning
totally happening.
planning some stuff together. So this has been so amazing and so many golden nuggets. So if someone is like, okay, I love this woman too, where can they find you online?
On Instagram, _awaken your soul. You can also find me with my partner, Gina Starbuck, with our collective like retreat business. We have a podcast together as well. Uh, and that's at Awake and Soulful. So you can find me in both places. Um, yeah, I mean, really that's the best place to connect. Send me a DM, let me know I'm there, or let me know you're there. And we've got some free Facebook groups and some fun stuff that we can welcome you into.
Awesome. So I will have all of her links in the show notes. Thank you so much. This has been so amazing, so yummy. And I knew it would be. I knew it would be. So that's why I was so excited to have you on the show. And I know everyone is going to love it. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, M&Ms. Until next time, be decadent. Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.